have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. If you want to buy a foreign car or take a trip abroad, market conditions may cause your dollar to buy slightly less. But if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today. The effect of this action, in other words, will be to stabilize the dollar.
Let's welcome Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, John Bonham, Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin's 7th visit to North America was a historic moment to unveil the feature songs from Zeppelin IV in front of thrilled American and Canadian audiences. Because they didn't tour these lands after Led Zeppelin III, they needed to come back fast as the market was changing. Among the many competitors was an American band who played 98 dates in 1970 and 88 shows in 71. The group was Grand Funk Railroad, and Peter Grant didn't like them. I enjoy Grand Funk's music, but it has to be said, their April 1971 record by the name of Survival has one of the worst album covers in rock history. Led Zeppelin was back in the action with a lot of new stuff. 4 songs from their 1970 album and 4 unreleased cuts waiting for that final mixing session. Word of mouth on the new material helped the band's popularity to grow. In the end, it was down to the music. They were still 2 years away from actually having a publicist, so like rock and roll pirates, their songs were their weapons. Robert Plant shaved off his Viking beard before the tour. John Paul Jones was next midway through September. In between riots in certain cities over tickets and just usual crowd pandemonium, this tour grossed $1 million. That's about $7.6 million in today's money. Now this tour is also known as the beginning of Robert Plant's vocal demise, something that would slowly increase with such a demanding setlist. Because this period kind of overlaps their 5th album as well, you can check episode 1 on the making of Houses of the Holy for a detailed analysis on Robert's voice cracks in this time period and further problems in 1972.
This is another track of the next album, and this is a thing called, this is a track called Stairway to Heaven. This is a track called Going to California. For God's sake, give me some. You've got to get these PAs in there. Try again. Try again. We got no volume on the guitar. Whoever's working the PA, for God's sake, turn the guitar a little bit louder. Whoever's asleep and working the PA. And we've also got no monitors.
Led Zeppelin's first visit to Japan was a historic feat. You can check episode 2 of The Making of Houses of the Holy for the story of how Japan became a rock and roll destination and a brief summary of the band's 1971 trip. Since this is a documentary on Led Zeppelin IV, let's talk about the songs. Black Dog, Stairway to Heaven, and Going to California were played at all 5 shows in Japan, with Rock and Roll an encore on their last date of September 29th.
You are too quiet. Much too quiet. Dishonorably quiet. It's not cool.
Down by
The band returned to England in October, and Page completed the final mixes for Led Zeppelin IV. A total of 11 songs were completed for the final cut. Now let's think they didn't discard any tracks. So what if they used Down by the Seaside, Night Flight and Boogie with Stu, plus other songs from their archive, such as Poor Tom and Bernador? Well, that adds a total running time of 60 minutes, which could almost be the double album minimum back then. While it's tempting to think about this scenario, the effect wouldn't have been the same. There's no way Night Flight has a chance against When the Levee Breaks. Personally speaking, I wish Down by the Seaside made the cut, but it wasn't made to be. 8 songs were selected for the album's final track listing. Whenever I hear praise for Physical Graffiti as being the perfect track list, I just like to remind folks that these outtakes were not good enough for Untitled. So as we know, the story goes Robert Plant purchased a painting in an antique shop, and this was used for the album cover. The painting was put in an almost demolished house, and the photograph was taken. The building we see on the back cover is Salisbury Tower in the Ladywood district of Birmingham, England, which is like 12 kilometers or 8 miles from Walsall College, the place where Jimmy Page discovered Robert Plant back in 1968. Also in between these 2 points we can find West Bromwich, Robert Plant's hometown. Led Zeppelin had played Birmingham 3 times from 1969 to 1970. I looked around on Google Earth to find the same angle for the album, but of course most of the old houses are gone. There's no chimneys anymore. I tried both sides from the building, and this is the closest thing to what it looked back then. So let's talk about design. I've spotted several albums that were released before Led Zeppelin's Untitled, which may have influenced its iconic style. I'm not saying they copied them. What I mean is the collective unconscious of creativity. Sometimes there's a flow of ideas in the air, that's all. First we have Who's Next, which I can help to think Salisbury Tower when looking at that concrete type of monolith. Then there's the funny internet theory that Jethro Tull's Aqualung is a younger version of the man on the Zeppelin cover. With a similar hunchback movement, we can talk about coincidence for sure, but still, it's a solid reference. Next, there's George Harrison's masterpiece from 1970, which, like I said earlier, had a definite musical influence on Zeppelin. The album cover lives in the same universe as Untitled. Moving on, I found other similarities in both Black Sabbath and Genesis, from the housing style to perspectives and angles. Trespass in particular strikes me as variations on a theme. And last but not least, the flowers on the paper wall share some of the style of Led Zeppelin III. Paper walls were huge up to the late 60s. As we can tell from this British footage at the time, they were mass-produced and quite popular for interior decoration. The dichotomy of Led Zeppelin IV speaks about old versus new, tradition versus modernism, and how these battles are endless in the cycles of society and its fixation with progress, although sometimes it's just fashionable decline. We can see further exploration of this topic on Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange, released in December 1971. John Bonham was a huge fan of the film to the point of dressing up like a droog in 1975. Now, the man on the cover was a mystery that was solved in 2023 and was covered by many media outlets. The image was captured by a photography teacher, Ernest Howard Farmer, who died in 1944. The craftsman in the picture was known as Lot Longear, and he was from the town of Mere in southwest Wiltshire, which is about 100 kilometers or 63 miles from Headley Grange. While the band was still a couple of years away from their official logo, they took the first and most important step into branding. 4 symbols were chosen to represent each member. In terms of the music business, it was a brilliant marketing move to have the symbols become synonymous of Led Zeppelin's bandmates. Say what you want, but this is the most metal thing back then that precedes all future metal branding and merchandise. Jimmy Page's symbol was not meant to be pronounced Zozo. It was actually taken from a couple of dark magic esoteric books he liked. These are a couple of examples of designs tracing back to 1557 that would work as a basis for the iconic symbol. Robert's feather was taken from Egyptian history, as well as the civilization theory of Atlantis. The feather also represents courage for Indian tribes. Jumbo Jones's symbol was taken from ancient times when it was used to exorcise evil spirits. I still remember back in my Christian high school when POD's Satellite was released on September 11th, 2001. I told our religion professor, "Hey, that's John Paul Jones's symbol from Led Zeppelin." I was sent to the principal's office, who explained why I should stop listening to classic rock. John Bonham's symbol has two sources. First, there's the Hierophant tarot card, which is just disturbing to be honest. And then there's a PG-13 reference that's usually mentioned in classic rock magazines. Ballantine Ale, an American brewing company founded in 1840. Business was good until the mid-60s when people turned to lighter beers, thus the company was later sold in 1972. Their logo was created in 1879. It was inspired by condensation rings left by beer glasses on the table. Guest musician Sandy Denny received a symbol as well. It was a variation of Bonham's with an alleged reference to the divine. Looking at all 5 symbols though, they were premonitory to say the least. Jimmy lost himself in the dark steps of rock and roll past 1975. Robert found courage in adversity. John Paul Jones was the one unharmed by excess. And John Henry, a tragic alcohol-related death, with Sandy Denny following a similar path. The album's inside illustration was painted by Barrington Colby, whose style was in the same alley of vintage British art. The Hermit was based on the tarot card by the same name, which represents prudence and guidance. My personal opinion within the Zeppelin organization is that the Hermit represents both Ahmet Ertegun and Peter Grant to a degree, before things got crazy in 1977. Jimmy Page would later play the part of the Hermit on The Song Remains the Same film. Lyrics for Stairway to Heaven were included on the record, with a special lettering that paid tribute to the 19th century. The Hermit, along with Stairway's lyrics, became a fan favorite through the years, achieving mythological proportions in merchandising terms.
Okay.
I heard something there.
All right, listen for I live with Satan, exactly. Okay.
As I live with
How many in the audience heard that? All right.
There's no escaping it.
That is actually, and it makes me wonder, when he says, and it makes me wonder, backwards is translated into there's no escaping it.
The latest fad to hit the pop world is bootlegging, the illegal production of records, of music by top groups, by backstreet manufacturers. At the moment, the bootleggers only steal the music of top groups, the groups who sell the most. Peter Grant is manager of the Led Zeppelin. We found bootleg albums of his group easy to buy in the West End.
How much money do you think you've lost personally, and the group too, from the activities of people who've bootlegged your records?
Well, I would think altogether between $150,000 and $200,000.
Have you actually caught anybody recording your group at a live concert?
And it's in Germany. In Germany at a concert. And I think it was Munich, and they were recording it there. And well, it wasn't very good sort of attempt. The sort of microphones on broomsticks stuck up in the air, you know, that could be seen from the stage, and they would confiscate their equipment. And I think the police arrested them.
So these bootleggers using very crude equipment, in fact?
Or here, but not in America. In America, the Blueberry Hill album, the double Led Zeppelin album that was recorded in Los Angeles in the Forum, that was recorded by radio transmitters, you know, that pick up the signal as the concert's going on in the hall. And that transmits outside to a mobile recording truck.
What does Led Zeppelin manager Peter Grant do when he finds bootleg recordings of his group?
I personally go and confiscate the records.
Do some of the groups employ heavies to...
Well, they're not going to get any very heavier than me, are they?
The album was released on November 8th, 1971, with no title on the cover, nor the inside sleeve, nothing. The only way was to look at the vinyl itself and realize it was Led Zeppelin. With the 4 symbols unpronounceable, radio stations and magazines were baffled, thus it became known as Untitled, or 4 symbols. This was a response to the critics. Jimmy went for what Atlantic Records told him was commercial suicide, but he didn't care. He wanted to make a statement, and what a statement it was. Let the music do the talking, and the selling. Now this also created weird conspiracy theories back then, claiming that the band didn't play on the actual record, which just adds to the whole Zeppelin mystery of not revealing their inside world to the press.
Right, so anyway, let's start off very quietly. This is called Stairway to Heaven.
Led Zeppelin played a small 16-day winter tour in the UK, almost a year after the recording sessions for Untitled began. It was the right thing to do, but they pretty much did the same songs they've done all year. Black Dog, Going to California, Stairway to Heaven, and Rock and Roll were the 4 songs performed from the new album. The band went back to the studio in December, just as their winter tour was about to end. The reason? Giving a second chance to a song they rehearsed at Headley Grange but discarded. This is where the story of Houses of the Holy begins, and you can check all 3 episodes from the series here on my channel. While Led Zeppelin IV became the band's best-selling record at 37 million copies, it wasn't the best-selling record of 1971 nor 1972. You see, because it was released at the end of '71, it paid the price of winner. It just couldn't beat one of my personal favorite albums at the time, Santana III, charting Billboard's #1 in November 1971, nor Sly and the Family Stone's There's a Riot Going On for December, with Zeppelin coming in at #2. Had the band not experienced major issues with the album's original mix back in April, a May 1971 release date would have been a game changer, and like a domino effect, maybe even have Houses of the Holy released in 1972. And of course with that we can go on, thinking Physical Graffiti would have been released in 1974. Now, Led Zeppelin IV and their debut album are the only 2 records that didn't chart Billboard's #1 album list back in the day. One was released too late, and the other, well, it was probably released too early. Now, what was the best performing Zeppelin album on the Billboard charts, you ask? That would be In Through the Outdoor, which, yes, I have 47 copies of at the time of making this video. Led Zeppelin IV was re-released in the late 80s and 90s without any bonus material until 2014's deluxe edition. While the tracklist of the companion disc may seem like a carbon copy with no surprises, it features 2 fantastic instrumental versions of the Battle of Evermore and Going to California, plus a Sunset Sound mix for Stairway. The rest is worth checking out from a production and audiophile perspective. Alternate mixes may fool many at first, but a close listen reveals new angles to the music. Led Zeppelin IV remains their only album where every song was performed on stage as a standalone number. It gave the band iconic songs that didn't leave their setlists for the next 9 years. As a cultural landmark, the record's influence on rock and roll was absolute, with many bands inspired by its mystique, recording process, and no filler material. Like the old man on the cover, we carry the struggles of life in juxtaposition to the world around us, ever-changing. Our paper wall memories slowly fade in the digital age. Everybody has their own definition of hope, that what provides meaning, comfort and warmth. Led Zeppelin IV represents balance. It's middle ground before stardom changed the stakes of a game that only got harder as time went by. It may very well be like the photograph of the old man on the cover, the last glimpse of the touring band playing small clubs in England, at the mercy of big stadium business and excess around the corner. This was the making of Led Zeppelin IV. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.